a lot of women have to plan babies. So they will have sex. You can be killed in India for talking about sex. I think the judgment is more from the peers, the peer group or the social group.
Welcome to Rule Breaker. Today's guest is one who's broken rules for a very long time. And I have seen her from the time that I started She the People. Pallavi Varnwal talks about sex, libido, making out, and everything that you've always wondered, are these banned topics? Well, she's mainstreamed them. At a time, nobody was willing to get out of their bedroom and wonder, how do we get these right? Pallavi, thanks very much.
Thanks, Shelly.
First question to you. Why do people always think of sex as an act and not something that is part of natural growing up?
I think,
And pleasure, actually, not just growing up.
Yeah, recently I was in Auroville and there was this sculpture of a deity and the god, and the deity had like full breast, and there was no. If you see, you have done this one reel on the She the People, like how women started covering their breasts as a result of Victorian culture. So I think India was, in the ancient times, India was one of the most liberal countries when it comes to sexuality, intimacy, pleasure. But I think the colonial import that happened where we just took something which was not, India was the land of Kama Sutra. So we are just going back where we started, is how I see it.
So, one of the things that I've constantly noticed is that when people think of sexual health, right, firstly, they hardly think about the word health around it. It's just become the new term now, but it's predominantly sex. The part that I'm always baffled with is how little attention is paid to intimacy, chemistry on one hand, but also, the inputs that go into having a good life, eating better. The idea of nutrition and sexual health are like chalk and cheese when that's not correct.
Yeah, I say that if you don't love your life, you can't have a great love life. So I think life and sex life or bedroom life are intricately connected. How you behave in your bedroom is how you behave in life. I've seen people who don't have a lot of zest in life. They are, suppressed, or they have a sleeping sexuality. And that's the problem, because we think that sex is something which is, aside from the other aspects of life, like, for example, health, finance. People are indulging. I mean, there are so many companies who have come, who are talking about this whole pleasure tools and toys. So I feel that the integration of sexuality has not happened, but people were always curious about it. There has never been a lack of interest or curiosity around it, but people, where there was a judgmental attitude, there is a shame, which Osho calls it as a herd mentality, where very few people are willing to question what is happening is right or not. So I think, yeah.
There's a lot of judgment and shame attached to sex. Why is that? And is that so even today?
I think the judgment is more from the peers, the peer group or the social group. Individually, a person understands. I get so many questions from women who are suffering from low libido. Like just a week back, there was a female client. She's from US. She said, all my husband wants is a release. All he wants is a release. And initially, I was neutral towards it, but now I am repulsed towards it, and I cannot make my body go through this. So I think where men are learning this, they are learning, vast majority of men are learning this from porn, and porn is not real sex. Our reference of sexuality, there is no aesthetics, there is no art around it, there is no literature around it. The only thing we have is like, all the obscene novels, all the porn. So when we are growing up, there is no sex education in schools. So the only way we get to know is through friendly gossip, salacious magazines, obscene media, and we think what they are showing is what it is, and we cannot associate. It always remains a silent, discreet adventure.
Why are so many women today suffering from low libido?
I cannot tell this. I think the way a man approaches, love making is so mechanical. And also a woman's sexuality is so different than a man's sexuality. He needs to understand that he's not dealing with another man in the bedroom. He's dealing with a woman. She has her own, warming up, emotional connection. Like, a lot of times people get into this blaming that, because you are married to me, you should give this to me. Thankfully, my husband, he's quite sex positive, and he was talking about one of his female clients in scuba diving. She said, yesterday my husband had to do it, so all I have to do is lie like a log. And that was so hurtful to even listen that someone is going through that. So one, they talk about it as a marital duty, and if she has to go through something unpleasant, the next time her body revolts. So people don't know how to have a classic or intimate or which is more sensual. They always see it as like a hard, fast, intense, aggressive action, and it doesn't work. After a certain honeymoon phase, they say is like maybe the energies are high, or a lot of women have to plan babies. So they will have sex because they want to become a mother, because that's the only route available to, become a mom. So once that goal is accomplished, they have no other reason to become intimate, because they don't enjoy what is happening. They have never understood their bodies. They have never, felt their bodies. So they themselves are so disempowered when it comes to the bodily pleasure and the shame. Like when a girl is growing up, she's told you are khandan ki izzat. You are the honor of your family, and your vagina is the honor of the family. So all these things, she grows up like, I have to preserve it for someone. So I have to give it to him.
Yes, to be presented. I want to ask you though, from the health perspective, what can women do to improve low libido conditions? I particularly see the large number of women come into Gayatri and they are looking for nutrition solutions, so that after 35 they're conscious of potential libido challenges. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. See, your food is your fuel, and I will say it is also your erotic fuel. What you feed inside your body is a lot of times, there is so much of processed foods. So I tell them, stop having less processed foods, start having more natural, like raw fruits, vegetables, hydration, keep yourself hydrated. And I think the relationship with food is, it is something where I see is listen to your body. What your body, a lot of times we go through, most of these women are also working women, and they are managing the house and the job. And so we often look forward to food as a sedating agent, like I need the food cravings. So I think that healthy relationship, we have our cheat days, but also know that the more rawness, the raw fruits, raw vegetables, they are an excellent source of making the body feel more natural, and sex is a natural act.
Yeah. When one looks at overall health, right, women have many reasons because of which their sexual health is compromised. Another one is vaginismus or pain. This is something that a lot of women complain about, and they are frustrated with the situation. What are the reasons for this? Why does this happen to women? And as a coach, what is your suggestion on managing this, both emotionally and of course through a practitioner?
A large part of them are psychological. Yesterday, I got a vaginismus case where she said, I have been through so many gynecologists, but I think there is a mental block. That is what the first introduction of sex to a woman is. She will grow up hearing stories that it will be painful. And it's that the first night has so much of weightage. Like there will be first night where, suddenly from nowhere, she is expected to be hypersexual, and it doesn't happen. So, and then that guilt sets in, and then trauma sets in that, okay, I'm not able to do it. And they don't understand the body-mind relationship, like how your mind and body are one unit. So, mindfully, there is always a fear around it. It's like a cycle that reinforces that once there is a trigger that happens that causes a pain, the brain becomes hyper alert or hyper vigilant to that pain. And the brain is warning you the next time, don't do it, stop, it is going to hurt. But if she goes and she does anything, and her body is already in a contracted state.
Yeah. So in that sense, today we are seeing a lot of television, which is extremely, is making a lot of effort to be open about desire and quenching that desire. Bridgerton is one great example. In practically every season, you've got a man telling a woman how it's done and how they're supposed to feel. I keep wondering if this is good service to those who don't know, or is it really finding another male gaze to the idea of what sexual pleasure is?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, most of these women, they even within their friends also, they talk in a subtle language. They don't even use the exact words. They don't even use the exact descriptions. It's like, in my session, so many women, they say, I was told it will hurt. I say, what is it? Replace it by the word itself. So even telling that word itself is like, that thing hurted. When I tried that. So it is always it or that, which shows that between a woman to woman there is so much of inhibition talking about it. And men, yes, men have been sexually more experienced, just because their anatomy. If you see the male sexual body, a small boy, he has to urinate, so that's the first time he holds his penis. But a woman has no such biological function to hold or touch it. So men are more confident and I will say more habituated to their bodies.
Why is it not okay for us as women to believe in the male version of what is sexual pleasure?
Because they are different. It's like east and west, it's like north and south, what a man requires and what a woman requires. See, for men, they achieve emotional intimacy through the physical intimacy. Like if a man gets closer to his partner, then he feels the emotions running. For a woman, it's the other way around. She needs to feel that emotional connect to be sexually intimate. And most often the conversations in bedroom is, people don't know how to carry these conversations between partners. Like I read somewhere that it's more hard to talk about sex than to do it.
It's true. But why is it that women are not talking enough about this? In an era where we are talking about pleasure tools hitting the market, there's a great deal of discussion amongst the Gen Z, but they are not the ones who are stuck with the problems, the women in their 30s and 40s. Is there a breakdown about sexual pleasure in terms of conversation between a man and a woman that needs to be fixed first?
Yeah, I mean, I will say even within women, they shame women. I had a female client and she said she was not, desiring her partner. She did not have active desire and she consulted a gynecologist and she said, if you do it before marriage, you will, this is bound to happen. So you should do it after marriage.
Wow. That's like walk into a tunnel that has no electricity. Wow. And then?
So I think, they, first of all, they hesitate to talk about it. If, for example, if you gather somehow the courage and you talk about it and then you get shamed, I think you totally get shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a very interesting linked piece to this, which is that the idea of pleasure, particularly among Indian women, is painful. How do you, as a counselor or a coach, change that thinking among women about themselves?
Yeah, I think that part between the legs, it's always remains hidden. It's always away from the view. Most women have not looked down there. They have not seen the skin, the texture, the folds. It's always has been a sight for main pleasure. Something that the word penetration itself means something has to be penetrated. So the whole penetration is centered around this part of a woman, the whole idea of sex. So I think for a woman, it took me so many times, like, for me, the self-pleasure, I started doing self-pleasure when I was like 32. Before that, I did not know this part is not covered in medical textbooks, in school anatomy, the clitoris or the other parts of a female sexual anatomy. It is not covered. They only talk about uterus, fallopian tubes, ovaries, and the the womb.
It's like the scientific way to get the babies out.
Yeah.
So, Pallavi, I've now tracked your journey for close to 10 years, right? What's changing around people's understanding and interest in seeking pleasure? Are women truly finally coming out and saying, I need my share of it too?
Yeah, I see. I mean, whether it is an outright denial, which I am happy, and I told this, the female client which I was talking about, that I'm glad you said no. I'm glad you did not put yourself through such an experience, because for me, even saying no means that somewhere she is owning up her sexual agency, which many of our mothers, they have never been through. We never know what happened there because it was always about pleasing the husband or pleasing the male. So I feel even her saying no and her telling man that I'm not interested is one of the signs of sexual freedom I see a woman. Secondly, for a lot of women, they struggle. There is a lot of struggle, which I know, like, whether it was about the suffrage rights or whether about any other feminist rights, which we have gone through after a tremendous period of struggle. I also see that the feminist empowerment will be followed by sexual empowerment. And a lot of women are going through that difficult road. We are going through that difficult road. It's a period of transition. We are no longer repressed, but we are not liberated either. It's somewhere, yeah.
No, I was once told during the course of the research for my book, Sisterhood Economy, that Indians are having a lot of sex. Yeah. A large part of it is in rural India. Yeah. We always think it's the opposite, like the urban lot knows everything they need to know. They may know, but they're not doing it. Yeah. Is your assessment similar?
I think I don't know about the pleasure, that whether it is going to give pleasure. There is not enough insight because most of my clients are urban clients. But I have seen that cases of infidelity are rise, and women are going out of marriage. A lot of women are going out of marriage, and one reason is sexual satisfaction, or they tell the male that because men have to catch up. Men have somewhere, they have been left behind when it comes to understanding a woman in bedroom, and now they are catching up because women are voicing it out. So I feel, with respect to the quality of experience, yes, in urban stratas, I see that it's not just about doing the act, but the quality. How is the quality? I want that quality, and if I'm not getting quality, I can say no to it.
So India suffers from a very large orgasm gap.
Yeah.
What is that orgasm gap that you've been talking a lot about of late?
I will say personally also, for me, I got my first orgasm through a sex toy. And one reason was I did not understand my own body. For a man, it's easy in the sense there is a physical sign of he gets release, there is ejaculation. But for a woman, there is no such physical sign. Yeah. It's an internal phenomena. So, and then a lot of women, they don't talk about it. Plus, what they show in porn is a female screaming and shouting at the top of her voice.
Yeah.
Not many women, they think that if I have to go to that level, take my voice out of the roof to show that I am indeed orgasmic.
Then you're faking it. Yeah.
So they think that is what is shown is real. So it can be subtle. No one told them that it's subtle. It can be different. It is like more like a wave. I tell them it's like a sea wave. It will go and you will come. Your pelvic will move. Your pelvic will rock. So these conversations they don't have between themselves. And I think that's where the block comes. Like, you need to be liberated. There is a lot of holding back. A lot of women are, not comfortable doing sex in the light. They would like.
Yeah. I would imagine that's part of the reason why they don't have agency on their own bodies. Yeah. Okay, Pallavi, a couple of just questions before we conclude. One is like, just going back in your own journey, why did you pick this subject in a country like India, say about a decade and a half ago, maybe a little longer? And how did you navigate the stereotypical approaches that might have come across to you saying, hey, what is that? What do you mean you are an intimacy coach? What does that even mean?
Oh, it was like, and when I look back, I feel so amusing in terms of the fright I had, the fear I had when I started. I mean, I was an anonymous blogger, creating one of those anonymous pages and writing about
things that people are searching so much about.
Yeah, and I started getting queries, and that made me think that, okay, this is, they would seek advice from me because they had no one at that time, 6 years back, who was talking about sex. And it was, I remember I was trying to talk to, because now at least thanks to the Instagram and other platforms that people are opening up. But 6 years back, there was this lady, young girl, she said, you can be killed in India for talking about sex. And that just...
She may not have been wrong. I mean, in parts of our country, that could have been case through a mob.
Yeah. So even personally, I was like frightened when I will get a notice from, a lawyer or a Bajrang Dal Sena are going to come and issue a fatwa. I had been through all those nightmares and fears. I think what kept me sticking to this path was people themselves, because they found the only outlet was, my DM. And till today, every time I get a case, I was like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm helping people. Yeah. So it's not out there, in the open. The curtains are still drawn. but it's very much present. The issues are prevalent. And personally, I also found my own sexual happiness. I realized that how much important, like I say, sex is linked to youth. It's the best beauty treatment ever. So,
It is, yeah. But you got married twice.
yeah, yeah.
And things were not easy for you. What happened?
So I think the first marriage was arranged marriage, conventional marriage. I got married at 26 for the first time, and I got married 6 months back at the age of 40. And I think there's a huge difference between me as a woman, both in my bedroom life, both in my relationship, where I am more conscious and not like a triggered, traumatic individual. Even though we do have, struggles and conflicts are common, but having talked about like me knowing my own body and telling my husband, like even I tell him, like he was just saying 6 months back that that 6 months back we met, and he said, we used to have such a great sex life, and now you are like this. I say it cannot remain the same. I think one problem that people do which affect their bedroom life is they have this one model which is like the high hormonal, high arousal, intense, packed action, and they think they have to stay at that level. I say life itself is changing. There are seasons. How can your sex life be the same? So to be able to, for me, it's such a enlightenment to find different ways. I say if you're not having intercourse, I say you should be sexual till the age of 99.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have that same sex ever.
So I just want to kind of end this conversation on this very important element which we ignore, particularly as women. We're always so physical about the exercise, and they'll go out there and get themselves energized. Women are always under this impression that for this you don't need exercise. Can you bust that myth for us?
It's so important. Mobility is so important. And when I say exercise, I mean that move your body. I was reading this sex therapist book, and she said that one of the myths that we do is we work out for 1 hour and then we stay immobile for like rest 8-9 hours thinking that we have done our quota. No, dear, you need to move your body constantly. You need to stretch. You need to, move your pelvis. We are often, like, women are not supposed to, like just walking freely. They are so rigid in terms of that hip movement, because if a woman is moving, they say kamar matka kar chal rahi ho.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of gaze.
What's it called these days? The Gajni walk these days.
Yeah.
That's getting trolled.
Yeah. So they are so conscious even about the walking. Like even in the office, they see, you need to pack your sexuality. If you are a teacher, if you're a nurse, you're not supposed. I will tell you this real example from Kota. That in Kota, one of my clients, he's a student, and he said there the receptionists are told to wear appropriately so that they don't provocate students.
Yes. I know of a very large bank in India which made this rule earlier on that you should not wear clothes that could potentially make clients feel aroused by your clothing. Of course, women are the ones who had to change the way they had to dress up. But anyway, Pallavi, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Shaili.
Thank you very much.